so we're kind of going back a bit from, even though we're in 5 dealing with 4, that's because we have to be able to move formula or variables around in our next lesson. So it's a good time to talk about it. So the goal for this is being able to transform a formula so that you can so you can get a variable by itself, like get y alone or x alone or any of those type of things. So taking a look at this, let's try some of these problems. Okay, solve this formula, or the formula a equals 1/2 bh gives the area of a triangle. So solve this formula for h. So if I have a equals 1/2 bh, our goal right now, I want you to get h all by itself. Okay, work with your partner. I'm going to give you about 2-3 minutes to work on it. What's that? Number 1. You haven't done it yet? No. Uh-oh. Cole, what'd you try? You did number 2? Yeah. Okay. Caden, what'd you try?
I did the same thing.
So no one did number 1? Like 3 people tried 1? All right. Try it again. A hint, here you go. There's a multiplication symbol there as well. When you don't see any signs, those are multiplication symbols. Okay? How do you get h by itself? What do you need to get rid of? How do you get rid of those things? Okay, so you're taking and are you trying to move this 1/2 over?
No, just multiply
1/2 times 1/2. Oh, I got some papers? Oh, these are for other people. Oh, darn it. All right. 1/2 times 1/2. So what does 1/2 times 1/2 give us? All right. It's a strategy, right? It give us 1/4, right? You're right, though. We want to deal with that 1/2 first. That's something we want to deal with first. And the other way to think about this is, kind of talked about it earlier in the year, but anytime you're multiplying a fraction in, the other way to think about it, if there's no addition and subtraction signs, is you could write it like this. 1 times b times h, all divided by 2. Right? These are just fractions in themselves. We just have a 1 under them. Okay? That's one way to think about it. So to deal with that 2 first, if we want to get that by itself, the thing we've talked about this year in getting rid of fractions, how do we get rid of fractions? Or the 1 doesn't matter because times 1 there. So either one of these are kind of the same thing. How do you get rid of a fraction? Jaden? Multiply by 2. In this case, our denominator, our common denominator. So if I double both sides, whether I'm using this one or this one, it doesn't matter how you think of the problem. If you double both sides, then what happens is, what's half of 2? Everyone? It's 1, right? Right? So 1 BH is what we're left with. And then you have 2A. Same thing here. You get 2A equals, well, the 2's cancel. 1 BH. Okay, so no matter which way you think of it, you end up with that. Okay? Now what do I need to get rid of? Yeah? The B. And how do you get rid of a B that's being multiplied by H? Annalise? Yeah, we divide. We do the inverse. We think of it like if it was a number, what would you do? Well, you divide by it. So we're going to divide. Those cancel out. I'm left with H, and that's equal to 2A over B. Is that what you guys had to begin with? Well done. How many of you got that? Okay. How many tried something? Okay. You have to try something. You can't just sit there and do nothing. Right? You have to try something. So those of you that actually automatically started on number 2 first, well, the point of having number 2 is so that it says find H when you're given these. Well, the benefit of using this form is, well, what is the benefit? If you have A equals this and H equals this, they're the same thing. We've just manipulated it. Why would we use this form versus that form if we're doing number 2? Caden?
It's
It's simplified. It's already set up in the form that we know h equals, right? There's no math involved after we plug the things in terms of having to move things around. So everything's already moved to where it needs to be. So if I put in A as 16 and B as 4, remember substitution, substitute inside parentheses. I do that, I get 32 over 4 or 8. So 1h equals 8. Is that what you got, Caden? Or Keegan?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right, so today's a little different because you're not given a number all the time. You're dealing with variables. So, taking a look at, let's try a different problem here. Let's try that guy. Get rid of that other side so you're not tempted there. Okay? The formula P equals 2 times the quantity L plus W gives the perimeter of a rectangle for length and width. I want you to solve for L. So as you're looking at it, you got that L, W, and 2 on that side. You got to get rid of at least the 2 and the W, right? We want to keep the L. And there's a few ways you can do it. So if you're not sure and you're trying to figure out where to start, well, try to get rid of the W and the 2 in some way. Move it over to the other side somehow. Okay? Want to get the L alone. Okay, so Annalise says if we have P times 2L plus W, her neighbor's first step was to divide by 2. I like that first step. That's pretty good, man. That's one way you can do it. Remember, you have 2 of these things. If you want to think of this as a house, you could. You have 2 houses. You only want one of them. We want to get rid of one. The way we do is we cut them in half. If we have 2 of them, we cut in half. We're now left with how many of them? We're left with 1. We're left with 1L plus W. If I divide by 2 on this side, what do I have to do to the other side? Everyone. Divide by 2. Okay, so we get P over 2 equals L plus W. That's a good first step. Well done, Annalise. Tell your neighbor, well done. All right. All right, how do we get L by itself now? Let's go with, everyone tell your neighbor actually, then I'll have you. All right. Here we go. Person number 3. Jake, what'd your neighbor tell you? Divide by W. I'm not going to divide. I am going to move the W, though. Inverse of adding. Subtract W. Why would you subtract W, Jake? Yeah, because they're adding W. And W plus W, or W minus W, is 0. So now I'm left with L. That's what I want. I'm left P over 2 minus W there. P over 2 minus W. Is L by itself? Yeah, man. Oh. How many got something like that? Okay. Did anyone, that's a good answer. Did anyone actually solve it by distributing? Did anyone start distributing first? Yeah, that works as well. 2L plus 2Ws equals P. And then what would I want to get rid of first? The 2W. Okay, so minus 2W on both sides. Now I'm left with 2L's is equal to P minus 2W. And now we divide by 2. Now you'll notice when we divide by 2, those cancel, I'm left with L. And over here I have P minus 2W over 2. Did anyone get that? Okay, some of you just started here and then you kind of got bogged down here.
Well, I didn't finish it when I got there because I thought it was going to be wrong.
Oh, you erased? Or you stopped because you thought it was going to be
I
wrong?
just stopped because of
You lost confidence. You lost your... That's right. Okay.
Do you have to, like, right below the line that you drew, do you have to divide it? Do you have to get rid of the 2?
You have to get rid of the 2, yeah. So if I'm in this case here, I could leave it like this, or I could say P divided by 2. This is the same thing as having P over 2 minus 2W over 2. And the P over 2 you can't reduce, but this one you can. Those cancel. That's how you get the P over 2 minus W. Same thing. Okay. Now if you left it in this form, I would have been okay with that. Either one of those would have worked. All right. Any questions on it? Okay, I'm almost out of time here. I gave myself a time limit today, and we're getting close to it. We still got another problem or two. Right now, I want you to find P or L if W or P is 64 and W is 6. Okay, go for it. All right. Well, I haven't done it yet, so let's see. If we go P over 2 minus W equals L, and I put 64 in for P, so 64 over 2 minus 6 in for W, 6 equals L. Do I divide or subtract first? Everyone, do I divide or subtract first? Divide. 32 minus 6 is L. L is 26. 26. All right. 26. We'll compare. Anyone see where they make a mistake? Anyone get 26? Okay. All right. Kane, did you figure it out?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, the goal is if we miss them, we just figure out where we missed it. Okay. What's the rule with fractions? If you see a fraction in an equation, what should you do first? Tell your neighbor. Okay, we've referenced it all year, so what do we do if we see a fraction? We multiply? Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's combine the two. We multiply by the common denominator. We get rid of the fraction. Okay? Here is our problem. Remember, the rule is to get rid of the fraction. That will help you. Number 13 is what we're doing. Okay? Solve this formula for I.
I shared last night.
Here we go.
It's your time to share.
R equals V over I. How do I get rid of the fraction? Annalise? Multiply by the common denominator, which is, everyone? I. Oh, I. That's right. Multiply both sides by I. That gets rid of the fraction. That is our first rule. That is a rule to remember. If you don't like fractions, get rid of the fractions. There's no reason other than it's a fraction. It's a fraction, so get rid of it by multiplying by that. What happens then is when you multiply by I, that's like having an I over 1. And for those of you that remember fractions from elementary school, when you guys worked on them prior, when you're multiplying a fraction by another fraction and you can cross cancel, these things cancel out. They're gone now. I'm left with just V. Okay? And on this side, I'm left with IR. Now, how many made it that far? Okay, so the rule that you need to make a note to yourself, if you're struggling and you're looking at this, like I don't even know where to start, always get rid of the fraction first. Multiply by the common denominator. Even if the denominator is I, or U, or X, or 7, multiply by the common denominator. Okay, and then from here, we're not done. We've got to get I by itself. How do we get rid of I? Or how do we get I by itself? How do we get rid of the R? Okay? Yeah, they're multiplying by R, so we divide by R. Divide both sides by R. They cancel. I equals VR. V over R. Anyone get that? Okay. We're going to move on here. I want to try another one. Any questions on that one? Okay. I want us to give this right here a go. We're going to try those two guys right there, number 19 and 20. Solve those variables, or solve the equation for the given variable. So here's the equation. Notice the notation. Here's the equation. This is the variable they want you to solve for. That's why they put that semicolon there. Okay, here's your equation. This is the variable they want you to solve for. Okay, go for it. You guys get 2 minutes.
I just did 2. Yeah.
All right, what do I do?
Should I just keep the sheet until correction?
Yeah, you correct it in a while. Yeah. Hey, volunteer, what do I do? How many of you matched up with your neighbor? How many didn't match up with your neighbor? Uh-oh, dude. So we're trying to get y by itself. If I'm on this side, what do I need to get rid of to get y by itself?
2x.
2x. And how do I move that 2x? Are they adding it, subtracting it, multiplying it, or dividing it with y? They're adding it. What's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. Now, that's kind of a little misleading because this was a negative, we'd have to add it. But they're not multiplying, so the way we get, since there's no multiplication between the 2x and the y, we either have to add or subtract it over to the other side. In this case, since it's a positive, we are going to subtract 2x. Now, how many of you had that? How many of you multiplied? How many of you divided? Okay. So dividing breaks a bond in between two numbers where we don't see an operation. We see an operation between this and that. It's addition. Okay? So if you can't see the operation, then you break that bond that way. Okay? There's my y by itself. That being said, try number 20. Finish it up there.
Oh, yeah, never mind. It's 2.
Right, how many of you match your neighbor this time? How many don't match your neighbor? How many have compared with your neighbor? How many match your neighbor? Okay, some of us match. I want to get b by itself. First thing I need to get rid of is the... What do I need to get rid of? 5a. And in this case, it says 5a minus b. However, since we have an operation like addition or subtraction in between the 5a and b, that means we don't multiply. We have to add or subtract to get rid of this. Do we add or subtract? Who says subtract? Who says add? Why would we subtract? Go for it, Patrick.
Because it doesn't have, because it's a positive increment, and to get rid of it, you have to add a negative increment to it.
Good. Hey guys, looking at this problem, now watch. I know this is not a big, like you know what's there, but watch me reveal the problem. As I reveal the problem, right now, is that a positive or a negative 5a? Positive. Now those of you who said to add, you did that because you saw that symbol, correct? Okay, that symbol comes after it. So think of like reading it. When we read it, that's a positive 5a. So to move that, if you didn't see anything else, you would say, well, I got to subtract it. Well, that's what you do there. This negative has no bearing on that 5a. We subtract it. This becomes 0, and I'm left with what here? What type of b am I left with? Negative b. Negative b equals negative 5a plus 7. How do I get rid of this negative? Yeah, Cole? You don't multiply by negative. That's what they're doing here. This is like having a negative 1 times b. How do I undo that multiplication right here? Yeah, you do the opposite. You divide by negative 1. You've got to divide everything by negative 1. It's really the same thing as just flipping all your signs around. So this becomes a positive. This negative 5a becomes a positive. And this negative or positive 7 becomes a negative. Okay, this is not easy. It's kind of a difficult thing, but you guys are going to have the opportunity to ask some questions in class. So take a look at the assignment I gave you today. All right. Well, here you got it. It's telling you what to solve for. Show your work there. Ask for help if you need it. If you see a fraction, what's your first step? Get rid of the fraction. Get rid of the fraction.